All right. Well, welcome everybody to Arnie's Poetry Cafe. This is the first live audience we've had in maybe 2.5 years, something like that. My name's Clark Myers. I'm the host for this cafe tonight, and we have some great live poetry. We have Maureen Hall, Delilah Hammerlin, and Donald Nietzsche, who is coming. He's got a workshop today. He's finishing up right now, and he's going to hightail it down from Chilmark to join us. And I'll read a couple of poems as well. These readings have been going continuously since 2014, when Arnie became the MV Poet Laureate. And it's such an amazing contribution he made to poetry on Martha's Vineyard, and will always be grateful to him. He always included me every year in these readings, and I knew that was going to happen. It was a wonderful thing, and he encouraged so many other poets as well. The first poem I'm going to read is one of Arnie's. We did a tribute to his poetry. 16 poets read 16 different poems of his. And it's on a video that you can access through the Playhouse website. So this poem's called Not to Be, and it's in a book called Lightheaded in the Dark Ages. Mm-hmm. Not to be. It was not meant to be if you believe in fate. It was not going to be if you believe in chemistry. She raised poodles, he raised hell. He grew orchids, she grew weary. She was willing to admit defeat. He was defeated to admit he was willing. It was not built to last if you believe in sustainable architecture. You could see the stress of separation along the handmade seams coming to Jesus and apart. She saw them and began to pull in panic, and began to pull away, and in panic he pulled back. Wrapped up in himself, she made him whole. She saw the forest and heard cries of timber. He never saw the forest, only the trees. All cries were blotted out by sounds of the sun. He thought the world of her. She thought the world as all the places she hadn't seen. He thought he took her for what she was. He left nothing to the imagination. In the end, when she left with nothing, but took everything. Our first guest poet tonight is Maureen Hall. And she's a writer-poet and a year-round resident of Martha's Vineyard. She's worked at the West Tisbury Library for many years. She's been writing since the age of 8. Her poems, articles, and essays have appeared in numerous publications. Her work has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize. I think she's written some of the most poignant poems I've heard about mother-daughter relationships. Please welcome Maureen.
It's so nice to not be on Zoom and do something with all people. I want to tell Clark how much I appreciate him asking me to read, and MJ and the Playhouse for continuing to do this. Especially, I love that we're doing it and naming it after Arnie. He would be really proud, I'm sure. Mostly I'm reading new poems and it's revising till the last minute, so I'm just gonna go for it. This is called 52nd and 2nd. The homeless woman on the corner has a sweet setup. The elevated stoop is roomy, enclosed on 3 sides by a storefront, shuttered by COVID. No pesky customers to bitch about stepping over all her stuff, and she's got a lot of stuff. 2 extra large suitcases and a bunch of down comforters to keep out the cold. She sits there smoking sometimes, mouthing off to no one in particular. The Upper East Side. No one can afford to live here. It's another world. Can't argue with that. She was gone a few days last fall. I worried maybe the store was finally opening, or someone complained, or maybe she'd been readmitted to get back on her meds. Maybe her long-suffering daughter, it's always a daughter, hauled her ass home for one more try, to keep her off the streets, out of the shelters, or jail. But it didn't stick. She was back with the second suitcase and a winter coat, some pillows to cushion the pavement. She is clean, well-fed, and while it says more about me than her, I want desperately to know what collision of life and DNA has plunked her on that corner as the rest of us hurry on by. This is called Date Night. A couple sits at a table, their rings establishing they are married, and by their bored indifference that it is to one another. He has on a crisp button-down shirt, freshly creased from the package. She is a palette of mascara and lipstick, a strappy cocktail dress she will never wear again. They try not to talk about the kids, but it's the 90s. No scrolling cell phones or social media to distract. No baby monitor video apps. She fumbles through her purse, hands him a quarter, and he sighs, heading for the payphone to check in with the sitter. Their food is served, and they cut and chew, relieved for the distraction. He orders another drink, and she frowns, leaning forward as though about to share, then sinking back without a word. Their silence is enormous. She takes her purse to the ladies' room while he gets the check. He does not help her on with her coat, no touching, hurrying toward the door, their first show of enthusiasm since they arrived. Run, I want to shout. Stop the madness. But I am locked here in 2021, unable to warn them. It is already too late. It will never get any better than this night. If you've never read The New Yorker, then I apologize for this poem. I've been reading it for a really long time, and I don't know why I wrote this poem, but it just came to me at work one day. New Yorker staff cocktail party. I like The New Yorker, by the way. I picture a darkly paneled library, floor-to-ceiling shelves, no windows, or maybe they are covered with thick textured drapes. The men stand, one hand casually thrust in a pocket of their slacks. Everyone wears eyeglasses. There is a lot of interrupting, the testosterous odor of alcohol, brown, barely clear, sloshing in crystal tumblers. The 2 or 3 women in the room clumped together, or maybe spread out in the effort to divide and conquer. There are words, so many words, and not an editor in sight, though a gaggle of fact-checkers huddle around the crudité, murmuring amongst themselves, heads thrown back in silent titters and loud guffaws. It's very loud until it's not. Somewhere on the grounds, a butterfly flutters, and a gangly apparition in a top hat peers through a window, adjusting his monocle. One thing I started doing during COVID is I've been keeping journals since I was in middle school, and that's a lot of journals now. And so I was kind of going through them, trying to mine for some stuff, and this is a poem. Journal entry, February 1977. I write about my father at his older brother's wake, tall, handsome in his suit, pressing hands, managing the show. He and his baby brother share the same eyes, but that is all. He trails my father like he is still 10, my dad the cool teenager with the gang of friends, hanging on the corner, lifting weights on the roof. I am 15. 40 years later, I will walk down Queens Boulevard, past the Lynch funeral home, and remember that day, this spot. How in his coffin, my uncle wore a curly wig and makeup. How I recognized my father's nostrils in his powdered face. How my father would spend a day going around to bars collecting money, ode to my dead uncle, the loan shark. The remaining brothers decide not to tell my Nana he is dead, afraid she'll have another stroke. She misses the wake, the funeral, but she is not fooled. Like a lot of people, I had my grown children come home for periods during COVID, which was really nice and something I think in the long run we'll all be really happy that we were able to have that experience. This is called Sons and Fathers. My son is almost 34. He strides about my house, tossing his hair from his face, thick curls that haven't been this long since he was 2, and I cut them myself. His hair is too long, my mother-in-law complained for months. He looks like a little girl. She, who buzzed each of her boys in their high chairs before they turned 1. Mal insisted. Mystical Mal, who never changed a diaper or gave a bottle. Carpenter, artist, he chose all their furniture, tolerated her drinking, jogging up Overlook Mountain each Sunday after dropping her at church. Mal, who died crashing his car spectacularly into a tree that still bears the mark, home from inpatient treatment on a weekend pass. My ex was 20, painting houses on summer break with Jeff, his friend, to this day. My son burst into this world adoring his father, completely, hopelessly, with every coiled ounce he possessed. This man who changed thousands of diapers all times of day and night, gave bottles, spooned cereal, fell asleep with babies draped across his chest, one arm on their back so they would not topple. My son has his father's eyes, the Norwegian slope of his grandfather's nose. He spills joy into every room he enters, flinging it about like petals from a flower girl's basket. So one thing about Arnie is he always encouraged me to try and, go a little light, find a little funny. I tend to be a little heavy. And so I always would try and put in something like that for him and these two. I hope are later. Library story time. People with tattoos have babies too. It seems incredible, but it happens, really. Multiplicatively pierced with full sleeves, they slide Cheerios into toddler mouths. Request books on breastfeeding or sleep training. Folded like their parents before them on the floor, clapping, enthusiastically chanting the wheels on the bus, side by side with perfectly highlighted millennials, moms in Lily Pulitzer, dads in boat shoes, parents barely detached from iPhones, frowning in tandem at the content of a Maurice Sendak picture book, tut-tutting over the evils of processed sugar. Whether their degree is from Harvard or Hogwarts, it turns out so many people may find themselves in possession of a baby, a bald, slobbering, equal opportunity arbiter of joy. This is called cool. There are no cool parents. There are only people who may or may not be cool that somehow become parents. When a child tells you their mom or dad is cool, be warned, this is kid speak for, I am never punished, or my parents allow us to drink in the basement. And don't worry, they won't confiscate your car keys. When a parent informs you they are cool, contain your laughter. They probably believe it. Allow them their moment while basking in the knowledge that your child loves you too much to let you live a lie. Be aware that extended relatives may actually be cool, though such labels do not age well. Once upon a time, I had a cool uncle, and I myself was a cool older cousin. I have the naive hope of one day become a cool grandma, ever aware such an honor will be brief and bittersweet. And then lastly, this is an older poem, but it suits perfectly for right now. Island in February. I walk the beach for miles, seals and seabirds bobbing in the waves, the only living things I see. Snow lingers on dunes, rocks in the surf coated in ice. My bounty is plentiful this time of year. wampum, sand dollars, the tiniest spiral shells. The dog chases seagulls, barks at driftwood. Two swans link necks in an unfrozen patch of pond. An egret stands completely still atop the frozen water like a miracle. On the drive home, Sally is at the gas station. We call greetings from our cars while the attendant gives Beckett a treat. There is no sun to set on this gray day, but a band of pure yellow encircles the horizon, and that is enough. Thank you.
That was great. I'm going to read a poem, one of mine, called Produce. It was in the MV Times last month, I think. I'm pretty sure. It's an ode. Produce. Peas today, green toes with tendrils nested under a fluorescent sun in the false furrows of a northern market. Emerald hope against the winter chill, displaced sugar, this product of chili, this taste of spring and summer, side by side, roots and rutabagas, shabby relatives, thick-skinned and waxed. Peas, out of season, sweet as sugar, take me to summer somewhere. And our next poet is Delilah Hammerlin. And Delilah's a senior at the high school, regional high school. And she's going to be attending Wellesley College next year. And she looks forward to continuing her studies there. Delilah has always loved poetry and is taking an independent study course on it this coming semester. And I asked Christine Ferrone to recommend a student to me. Christine's an English teacher at the high school, and she didn't hesitate. Delilah was the name that came right out. So, welcome, Delilah.
Alrighty. Hi everyone. My name is Delilah, and I'm super excited to be here tonight. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is super exciting. I will be reading a few poems, a few of mine and a few from other authors that I'm sure many of you are well acquainted with. There we go. I'm going to start off with a poem that I'm sure many of you know, but which is one of my favorites. This is Aurora by Emily Dickinson. Of Rondon blaze, the north tonight, so adequate its forms, so preconcerted with itself, so distant to alarms. An unconcern so sovereign to universe or me, it paints my simple spirit with tints of majesty, till I take vaster attitudes and strut upon my stem, disdaining men and oxygen for arrogance of them. My splendors are a menagerie, but their completeless show, will entertain the centuries when I am, long ago, an island in dishonored grass, whom none but daisies know. Next up is one of my own, which I wrote in the winter of 2020, fun times, called Esotericism. How could it succeed? The change would cause turbulence, exciting the waters which so seek higher ground. And the change is inconceivable, any flicker of aspiration diminished by the flood of a ground-seeking fog. One that dims the lights and stills the grass, the old standing house fearfully watching the flow, the preserved bodies silent and cold, watching their eyelids sum the floor above. The change is desirable yet so distant, past the silent waters and desperately clad wood, the unmoving chess pieces and weakened jump ropes, past the collection of dust and filth settled, as the acceptance is evident, says provider long lost, tending the ideal of fate. Cries of children mixed with deceit lost, and corruption evident in innocent minds past. Lies and deception become clear, the inescapable temper of indifference. Now struggle is futile. The artistry of your breath is adrift in clouds produced, silently settling beside the ever-suffocating fog. Thick and heavy of stilled consciousness and misplaced visions disintegrated within the dust. A cold, opaque, senseless covering every stone, each previous entity immobilized, dazed and fixed. Diagnostic presences peering at an awry angle, never heeding the discreet disarray of perfection. All right, this next one is another one that you guys may very well know. This is Acceptance by Robert Frost, one of my favorites of his works. When the spent sun throws its rays upon a cloud and goes down burning into the gulf below, no voice in nature is heard to cry aloud at what has happened. Birds at least must know. It is a change to darkness in the sky, murmuring something quiet in her breast. One bird begins to close a faded eye, or overtaken too far from his nest. Hurrying low above the grove, some waif swoops in just in time to his remembered tree. At most he thinks her twittered softly, "Safe! Now let the night be dark for all of me. Let the night be too dark for me to see into the future. Let what will be, be." All right, and this next one is one that I wrote just a few days ago. It is called That Late Summer. That late summer always comes too soon, with its rotting fruit and languly stalks, the farmhands sweating and the drooping grass sizzling, dreading the cruel days under the stifling sun. The early spring had come and gone, and with it seeds and sprouts and buds. The frozen earth gave way to life, thawed by the sweet heat of the sun. The late spring quickly came and went. For barely a day its balmy breezes sang. Its bright colors speckled the grass, and the gardeners frolicked under the sickly sun. The early summer came swift and dense. The soil was fertile and cloaked by growth. But the nights between days became more breaks than rest, and the days stretched long under the selfish sun. Now the seeds that had soared since the early spring, and their sisters who sprouted just a few days late, both tall and lanky, bow before the knife, crumpled and dry from the vile heat of the sun, because that late summer always comes too soon. All right. Welcome. Now to end it off on a happy note, this is Opportunity by Burton Braley. With doubt and dismay you are smitten. You think there's no chance for you, son. Why, the best books haven't been written. The best race hasn't been run. The best score hasn't been made yet. The best song hasn't been sung. The best tune hasn't been played yet. Cheer up, for the world is young. No chance? Why, the world is just eager for things that you ought to create. Its store of true wealth is still meager. Its needs are incessant and great. It yearns for more power and beauty, more laughter and love and romance, more loyalty, labor, and duty. No chance? Why, there's nothing but chance. For the best verse hasn't been rhymed yet. The best house hasn't been planned. The highest peak hasn't been climbed yet. The mightiest rivers aren't spanned. Don't worry and fret, faint-hearted, the chances have just begun. For the best jobs haven't been started, and the best work hasn't been done. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Delilah. Really enjoyed your poems. They were great. I'd like to get a copy of them, please. I saw this poem on Valentine's Day on the American Life and Poetry site, and it's I just fell in love with it. It's called "As Serious as a Heart Attack," and it's by Kalamuya Salam. As serious as a heart attack. I've never been fully domesticated, but I have been civilized by women taught that the heart is more than a muscle, a life drum whose function is both physical blood pumping and spiritual longing to be embraced. But love is a river. We may get wet, but we can never drink it all. Love always flows on, more than we can ever swallow, no matter how thirsty we claim to be. So our next poet is a good friend of mine and all the poets on the vineyard, Donald Nietzsche. And Donald's worked as a house painter, fish market employee, landscaper, carpenter's helper, newspaper production worker, and most recently editor. His poetry chapbook, Driving Lessons, was published by Pudding House Press in 2007. His poetry's been published by Cape Cod Review, Salamander, Martha's Vineyard Arts and Ideas, The Further Shore, exploring the Cape and Islands through poetry, and local papers. For the past 3 years, it's probably more than that, right?
Yeah.
It's just 3?
Maybe,
Okay. For the past 3 years, he's led poetry drop-in in-class writing sessions through local libraries. Check your calendar listing for upcoming sessions, and they're wonderful events, so I highly recommend them. So, Donald Nietzsche.
So how long are we reading here? 15 minutes or something? Hello, everybody. This is so wonderful. What a treat. I just rushed down here from my class. And it ended at 6, so here I am. So yeah, this first poem is called February. And most of the poems that I've written in the last couple years come out of my own class. We do these exercises, and I start poems there, and then I finish them hopefully later. And this is one of the, a poem that was inspired by the Roman poet Horace, who he wrote a poem where he's giving himself advice, giving himself a little talking to. So this is called February. Don't be glum. Odds are you'll survive the winter and probably several more. Why not get your hopes up for warm breezes off water and falling asleep in the shade? Hang in there, even as memory stalls like a car as old as you are. But did you really think you'd never grow old? You're like that road the town neglected for years, more full of potholes than asphalt. But that doesn't mean you don't go somewhere. If only to the abandoned playground, littered with broken glass, weeds around the edges. Even the swings are gone. But if you'd listen, you can almost hear the loose chains of kids jumping off, even on such a cold day. Spring still weeks away. Should I keep track of my time? I don't know.
No worries.
Okay, all right. So this is a little bit of a strange poem. Starts, you think it's, well, I thought it was going to go in one direction and it went in a totally other direction. It's called Dream Poem. I dreamt I wrote a cop show about a special unit that goes after poems that don't make sense. In the pilot, the lead detective meets a poet at AA and goes back to her place to write a villanelle, waking up the next morning to find her dead beside him and the villanelle gone. You really murdered that Sestina, says the officer questioning the MFA candidate while leafing through her thesis. Maybe, says good cop, sitting on a desk, but you could still save it if you put it in your own words. Google do's and don'ts for writing great poems, suggests the assistant DA. That just shows how much you know, mutters the oft-ignored rookie. My wife says, no one wants to hear your dreams, but that has never stopped her. Brooke said, I should just hop on the next plane to Hollywood. Michael said, put your pen down very slowly and back away from your desk. Judy says it might make a good poem, but at this point it's little more than a gag. I wonder what my therapist would say, back when I had one, up in her shady corner office 4 mornings a week. I must have been desperate to agree to all that. I wonder if those sessions did much good. Saved me from the midlife crisis she predicted, handed me the keys to my subconscious, and helped make me the soulful human you see before you. And sure, she had valid points. My dad's elusive attentions, my mom's smoldering needs, which hardly makes me unique. But at least she didn't say, so how did the dream make you feel? And since it made me feel like writing this poem, then maybe it wasn't a total waste. So thank you, whatever your name was, sitting there mostly silent, recording my dreams. I can't even remember one, but I remember you, my detective, ushering me into the office, ready to sift through the clues. Help me solve myself. So, most of my muses are family members, and maybe one of the main muses is my granddaughter, who's 7. And this is about us last October exploring the Tyasquam River. I don't know if you know that. It's the stream that goes along Middle Road. This is called The Explorer. Stream water beads on her arms like stick-on gems, soaking her shorts, plastering her hair to her head, and her lips are turning blue. But she says we have to keep going because this stream comes all the way from Africa, and we need to find its source. I figure we've got 15 minutes till her papa picks her up, so I say, okay, lead on. She pushes forward through the hip-deep creek like the explorer she says she wants to grow up to be. Partly so she won't have to learn to read. What about maps, I say. Maps, schmaps, she says, ducking under a fallen tree, feeling her way. I'm glad we're wearing shoes because the bottom is rocky when not mucky. And then we come to a bend where the stream widens, and there's a camp chair in the middle, as if someone had just gotten up and might return any second. A throne, she shouts, a throne for a queen. She plops herself down. This looks like someone's special spot, I say, and we're just guests. Well, now it's ours, she says. Sucks to be them. Yes. Okay, this is a poem about the connection between poetry and tennis. So, two of my favorite things. It's called, does this keep going down? I don't know.
Yes, I think it does, yeah.
There we go. It's called The Ladies of Kazakhstan. Walking on the beach after sunset, my dog races off to greet someone coming out of the dark. Eddie, my old tennis pal, grinning like an actor coming out on stage, just about to speak. I used to help him run his clinics for the young moms in town after they'd dropped off their kids, feeding balls for Queen of the Court, hit and run, champs and chumps. Eddie nicknamed us the Kazakhstan ladies because it was always cold there, and we'd hit until the first big snow. I helped him out until my shoulder gave out. These days, I rarely see him. We talk about his clinic. Will the clay freeze tonight? If so, he'll have to move to hard courts, unless it's too cold to even be out there. We never had a lot to say to each other. We'd prefer to just hit, short court warm-ups, exaggerated swings, drop shots tit for tat, then moving back for baseline ground strokes, matching each other's pace, putting balls within reach to keep the conversation going. Sometimes our rallies would go on, like poems that keep surprising you, but everything makes sense. We didn't miss and didn't know why. He was always better. I could never beat him. But sometimes I'd hit a winner and he'd look at me and nod or point a wagging finger. Sometimes your shots felt effortless, as if you were watching yourself. And sometimes poems just appear like an empty tennis court in the woods, out of the wind, waiting for you to take your place and begin. So this is my other main muse, my mother, who just turned 92. And she's in Windermere, and this is about her and her caregiver, as some of you might know. This is called, I call this Sunset Boulevard because I'm just thinking about the movie and Clara Swanson. I can't remember, what did she say? I'm ready for my close-up now? Yeah. Sunset Boulevard. My mother's caregiver, Fred, places Kermit on her shoulder before every FaceTime. His idea, but she doesn't seem to mind. She always liked Kermit, even had his mug and sheets, but she really loved Miss Piggy. Fred's a bit of a joker, but that's probably why they get along. He gets her ready for her close-up. My mom, the glamorous star. Propped up in bed, sometimes she doesn't know exactly who I am, but greets me warmly, as if she guesses I'm someone she should know. Thank you for coming, she'll say. I know you're busy. Last week she told Fred, she's not my mother, but maybe a cousin. I ask her what's new, and she talks about her trips back and forth to New Jersey to visit her mother and sister. both gone these last 40 years. This time she says she drove all night, drafting behind trucks to get home in time for breakfast. And I realize she's really a girl now, wandering through her family's old house. Each room, a memory she enters and then leaves. Then she says, guess what? Fred and I got engaged. I say, okay. But does Fred know about this? I'm pretty sure he prefers guys. We'll see about that, she says. Thank you. I'm just going to read a couple more. So apologies in advance. This, so my, see, I have to find this. My year took a real turn last April when I got this phone call from my brother. I'll just read the poem. It's called Cinnamon. My brother says he almost didn't call, but they found something on his scan that they're thinking might not belong. They hope to know more from the biopsy. I'm watching a chipmunk out the window, crouching on a log to clean his paws, like someone bending down to say prayers. While my brother waits for me to respond, in that silence, I see him shuffling down the stairs as an infant and sucking his thumb, which he removes with a pop, to ask if I'll make the French toast again. I tell him we've run out of cinnamon. How am I doing? I'll read two more. Let's see. This is called Job Search. All day I work on my job interview preparations with a mixture of dread and alarm. My sister claims interviews can be good for you because they can help you remember how skilled you really are and at what, and uniquely so. So if you end up not getting the job, who cares? At least you get rejected for being yourself, not impersonating someone else. My wife says interviews are nothing but impersonations. And if I get a job that includes nights and weekends, she'll kill me. I haven't done an interview in 30 years. And right now, I wish I was anyone else. A golden retriever, a spider in the shower, a leaf on a houseplant, even if yellow, because I tend to overwater and also overthink. I'm sure I'll be fine when I'm finally there and can see the finish line, when we're all done talking and I can just go home. Until then, I'm that doe with an arrow in my side, stumbling through wet woods, trying to escape whoever chases me, wishing I could collapse at their feet and get paid for doing so. So, one more poem. Clark and I, this thing we'll probably never do.
We're doing it. I've got them. We're doing it.
We've both got about a dozen poems about songs, like popular songs we love. And so we were thinking of putting a book together, Tisbury Printer. Maybe we'll do it. Started talking about this 3 years ago. Anyway, So one of the things, I think we're going to call it playlist or
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
Playlist, something like that.
Something like that. It's something about how music is like a time machine, and it can take you back to when you hear a song. You will have some sort of memory association with it. That's one thing about it. Okay, so this is "Don't Stop Believing," which some of you might know. Don't Stop Believing was that fall's big hit. Penny was the girl with the mohawk, lip ring, just dumped, big black eye, stomped by her ex's new girlfriend at a Circle Jerks show in La Jolla. I was sleeping in the park. She was stripping downtown, living with her girls off Sunset. They called themselves the Sunset Strippers. Said I could stay under the overhang on her balcony in exchange for childcare. Every morning I'd see them down in the courtyard, laughing, topless, working on their tans. Every afternoon I'd push Sam along the cliff walk until he fell asleep. I was too young for her, she said. She was through with boys. But some nights after she put Sam to bed, we'd walk out on the old Navy Pier, 2 cigarettes in the darkness, the city swimming in the harbor like a stadium filled with light. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. It really was. Thanks to Maureen and Delilah and Donald and of course the Playhouse and the audience. It's nice to see some people in here again. That was a long haul, right? Thank you so much for coming. The next reading is going to be March 16th, same date, and Valerie Sonnenthal is going to be the guest host for that. So hope you can come. I'm going to read one short poem. It's sort of like a prayer poem to say goodnight to everybody and to hope for better days to come, right? It's called Breath. Think of your ribs as bricks stepped toward the sky. Think of your breath as smoke and your love toward your loved as late night embers. Think of your heart as bellows and kindling. Our place here is to burn as one. Think of us as flames on candle wicks, being passed from one to another. Thank you.
You got a pen? Right. Dan, did you say?